In this video, I will be showing you how to make a standing celestial garment cap, just like this. If this looks like what you have been looking for, don't go away because I will be right back to take you on this journey. In making a celestial cap, the only measurement needed is the head circumference measurement. So this measurement is taken around the head of the wearer. So I will be making use of this material. You can use any material of your choice when you get to the store where they sell material for Sutana, but make sure you get a quality one. So this will help the cap to stand. So if the fabric is not quality enough, it might be difficult for the cap to stand. So I'll be making use of this material. So what I'll be doing is folding my fabric into 4. So I folded into 2 the first time and I will fold into 2 the second time. So the measurement I've been using that has been working for me all this while is 10 inches length for the cap. So with this 10 inches, the cap will be moderate. It will not be too big and it will not be too small. If the wideness of your cap is not wide enough, it will be difficult to pleat. It's the pleating that also helps the cap to stay, apart from the type of fabric you use. The type of fabric you use, number 1, the pleating you have on the cap, number 2, and the third one is what you will be using in supporting your fabric, which is a fusible interfacing. These 3 things are what helps your cap to stand. So without these 3 things, the cap will not stand. So I'll be measuring 10 inches. That is the value I've been using and it has been working for me all this while. It works for all sizes of head, 10 inches length. So this is a folded part. This is the center of the fabric. So I've adjusted my fabric to the value I needed, which is 10.5 inches. So with this 10 inches, the real measurement is 10 inches and I'm adding 0.5 to finish the edges of the cap. So with this measurement, this will help me to be able to pleat my cap, and the pleating will also help the cap to stay on head, just like the one you are seeing in the image. So what I have here now is 10.5 inches, so which is enough for me to pleat my cap, and the pleating will help my cap to stand on head, just the one you are seeing on the image. So I'll be taking the 10.5 inches measurement all around the fabric until it gets to the other edge of the fabric. So I'm marking the 10.5 inches all around. So this will help me to have the round shape of the cap. So I've cut out my cap and this is what I have. Then I will be cutting one more of this. So please let your cap be what you'll be cutting last when you are cutting your Sutana. cut the bodice first, cut the skirt part before cutting the cap, because this type of cap consumes a lot of fabrics. So you have to be sure of the amount of fabric you have left before cutting. So I'm folding into 4 as well. Then I'll be using this as pattern. So I'll be needing 2 of this in order to help the cap to stand very well, just like the one you are seeing in our reference image. So if you don't have enough fabric, because one will be working as the lining, while the other one will be the main fabric. So if you don't have enough fabric, you can use a less quality fabric for the inner. Now the 2 pieces of our cap is ready, and the next step is to cut out the band. The band is what will rest on the head, while the circle will be attached to the band. So the band is cut out based on the head circumference measurement you are using. So this is the point where you need the head circumference measurement. So the head circumference measurements I will be using is 22 inches. So I'll be folding my fabric into 2. The band itself will be on fold, like so. So what I need from here, from this edge to the other edge, is nothing less than 22 inches. So if you know you will be gathering your cap with elastic rope, so you have to add extra inches, which will help the cap to gather at the back. But if you don't want to gather it, you leave it exactly the measurement you have. Then the height of the band is 3 inches. So this 3 inches is standard measurement. On fold is 3 inches. So which means if I open it, it will be 6 inches. So after that 3 inches, I will be adding 0.5 inches in order to attach the band together with the cap, just the way I added 0.5 inches when I was cutting out the circle. So I will adjust my fabric until I have 3.5 inches. So after opening it up, I will have 7 inches. On fold is 3.5 inches. So here I have 3.5 inches. So after which I will fold this into 2. Like so. This is the length. So this is the length of the band. Now I have my fabric on fold. So this is 4 pieces. I folded this for the first time from here to this side in horizontal, then in vertical I folded as well. So from this point to this point is the width of the band, so which I said I will be using my head circumference measurements. So the head circumference measurement I'm using is 22 inches, 22, and I will be adding extra 2 inches to gather the back of the cap with elastic. So that is 12 inches. Half of 24 is 12. So I'll be marking out my 12 inches plus 0.5 inches of seam allowance. So that's the same allowance I'll be using in finishing the edges of the band. So 12.5 inches. So make sure you hold your fabric in place when marking so that it doesn't shift. Okay, then I will measure out the height of the band, which is 3.5 inches. So don't forget the real measurement is 3 inches. I added 0.5 as seam allowance, so that is why I'm having 3.5 inches. Okay, so I have my measurements marked out already. Again, from this edge to this edge is the width of the cap, which is 12.5 inches plus seam allowance. Then from this edge downward is the height of the cap, which is 3.5 inches plus seam allowance. Then I'll be cutting out the band. So these are the pieces I will be constructing together to make a beautiful celestial garment cap. 2 pieces of the round circle and 1 piece for the band. So I will open this up and go to the next step. So this is 1. And this is the second pieces. So the next step is to fuse all my pieces. So this is the first circle. Can you see how wide it is? So the pleating will gather it to the exact measurement we'll be using. So this is the second pieces. So I'll be using one as the lining and one as the main fabric. So which means I'll be using the wrong side of this as the lining. And this is the band as well. So as you can see what I have here. So I'll be fusing all these pieces with my fusible interfacing. This is a soft one. So this is not BFF. It is not too soft, but it is a soft one. So please don't use paper, what they call paper stay. So paper stay does not really help the cap. It makes it look somehow. So the standing will not be real. It will look fake. And as time goes on, as you are washing the cap, the effect of the stay will wipe off. It will go off the cap, so it will not be staying well. So it is better you use soft one and make sure your construction has helped the cap to stand on its own. So this will help the standing to stay longer. So I will be fusing the 2 pieces of the circle. Now I've fused all my pieces. As you can see, this is the 2 circles and this is the band. So the next step is to join the 2 circles together. So, and it's going to be wrong side facing the wrong side. I fused the wrong side of my fabric. This is the right side and this is the wrong side. Then for the other one I'll be using as the lining. So I chose to use this as the right side. And I fused the other side as the wrong side. So this is the fuse side, this is the fuse side. So the fuse side will be facing each other like so. And I will stitch all around with 0.25, that is 1/4 of an inch. So out of 0.5 that I added as seam allowance, I will be using 1/4 out of it. Now I'm stitching the 2 circles together. Now I'm done stitching the 2 circles together. Okay. Now I've stitched the 2 circles together. As you can see, this is the outside of the cap and this is the inside of the cap. So I'm using 2 different sides of the fabric just for you to see the difference. But if you are making yours, the right side will be out and the right side will be inside as well. So that is the positioning of your fabric. So the next step is to pleat the cap to the edge circumference measurement I'm using. So I will be pleating my cap now. You can apply any type of pleat you like. You can make a knife pleat, you can make a box pleat, and you can make an inverted pleat. So it all depends on you. All the pleats works well on the cap. So for the sake of this tutorial, but for the sake of this tutorial, I will be applying a knife pleat. So I'm choosing one side as my starting point. So you can make your pleat as wide as you want, but the wider your pleat, the lesser the number of pleats you have. So if you want to have large number of pleats, which means you will reduce the number, it will not be much. So as for me, I'm using 2 inches difference in between the pleats, so which means I'm pleating 2 inches. So I'm pleating this and secure the pleat with pin. So the distance in between each pleat also will be 2 inches. So I will continue marking my 2 inches all around. If you don't want to have a distance of 2 inches, you can have a distance of 1 inch in between your pleats. So you have control over how you pleat your cap. So this is a knife pleat. A knife pleat is a continuous pleat. So I will continue doing this off the camera, and I will also give it a press as I'm pleating in order for my pleat to lay flat and look beautiful. So this is what I have after pleating my cap, as you can see. So I will be pleating the remaining parts of the camera, and I'll be back to show you the results. Now I've pleated all my cap. As you can see, the shape has started coming out already. Can you see what I have? So I pleated all the circles round and I gave it a press. That is why the pleat is looking flat like this. And I secure it with pin. So in order for me to remove all the pins, I will be running a stitch all around the edges of the cap. So after running the edges, I will remove all the pins. Then I will work on the band. So don't forget, I have 0.5 inches seam allowance, so I will not exceed that. So I will be running the stitch on the former stitches I have on my fabric. So now I'm done stitching the edges of the cap. Okay. So I've removed all the pins. So this is what I have. Can you see how beautiful it looks? Then I will take this back to the ironing board and give it a good press. So after giving it a press, then I will attach the band. So I will take my band on the two edges. You can see I iron and interfacing on the wrong side of the band. Then I folded it into two because this is going to be on fold. So this is the edge of the cap. Can you see? So that was why I folded it into two and I gave that folded side a press in order to make it look very flat. So you can see the edges is sharp. So also I have a seam allowance of 0.5 inches on both edges, this and this. So I iron it one side of the seam allowance. So I'll open this up like so, fold it into two right side facing the right side. So I'll be folding this right side facing the right side like so. And I will pin the two edges together. Okay, now I will be attaching the band to the cap, and the positioning is going to be the right side of the band facing the wrong side of the cap. So I'll be taking this all around, and when it is about to get to the edge, I will stop and stitch the sides together. Now I will be stitching from this point. This is why I pinned all around, and stop on the other side of the point I put a pin. So after stitching, that is when I will come back and join the sides of the band together. So this is the point I will be stopping, and I will continue the stitching after joining the sides of the bands together. Now it's time to stitch the sides of the band together. So now I've stitched the sides of the band together, then I will complete attaching the remaining side of the band together with the cap. So I will open up the seam allowance like so. So I've completed attaching the band together with the cap. As you can see, this is what I have. Then I will turn this inside out and top stitch on the seam allowance in order to keep it stay in a position. So I'll be running a top stitch all around the cap. So this will help the seam allowance to stay in a position. Okay, I'm done top stitching. So the next step is to cover up the seam allowance with the band. Like so. You can see the beauty of the cap has come out. Can you see how beautiful it looks? And I love it. Hope you love it as well. Can you see the cap? You can see how it's standing on its own. So I'll be folding in my seam allowance and use it to cover up these edges. Cover this up and pin all around. So this is the last step. After this, I will just give it a good press and show you the final results. Now I've pinned the edges of the band to the cap, as you can see. So this is now left to you how you want to finish the edges of your cap. You can use a blind stitch. If you have a blind stitch function on your machine, you can make it a blind stitches, or use needle and thread to make a blind stitch in order to finish the edges of the cap. This will make the cap looks more elegant and beautiful. And at the same time, you can run a straight stitches all around the cap. Just make sure it is neat as much as possible. We've come to the end of this tutorial. If you find this video helpful in one way or the other, give it a thumbs up and also share with everyone around you. Remember to subscribe if you haven't, and let's meet in my next video where I will be dishing out another valuable content from my wealth of knowledge. Always remember, there is no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs.